country roads take me home to the place I belong.
Welcome everyone to this week's episode of Unrooted Men's Basketball Edition, and my guest for this week's show is none other than sophomore guard on the men's basketball team, Jeremiah Testa. Jeremiah, thanks so much for joining me on the show.
I appreciate the kindness. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Let's start by getting to know you a little bit better. One thing I've learned about you from talking to countless players and individuals around the team is that you have a love for vocabulary and sounding like you are putting off airs. How did you become such an educated young man?
Well, firstly, my teammates actually they tend to exaggerate and dramatize a lot, dramatize. And I don't know, ever since the beginning of my high school career at Sarah High School, I was surrounded by all these really brilliant students, and a lot of them went off to to Stanford, Cornell. I know I have a lot of friends in that environment, and it just kind of breeded me and just sculpted me into that type of person. But I don't know, I've always been a normal kid in that environment, and then my teammates always recognize my overuse of vocabulary sometimes. Yeah.
Not necessarily a bad thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say it's more of a positive. You know what you're talking about. You sound like you know what you're talking about.
Yes, but they also, like I said, they do tend to exaggerate a lot. But honestly, with them, I sometimes attempt to give them a lesson, instruct them a little bit what word would be more useful. I've had those conversations with Kaylin. I recall Kaylin introducing my tendency there. Yes.
Now, you won a high school championship when you were at Sarah High. What was it like to experience becoming a state champion as a high schooler, no less?
Well, it was in fact very surreal, I thought, because I would have never expected myself to be competing on that level at Sleep Train Arena, the Sacramento Kings old arena. And I remember the beginning of our season starting off slowly. We didn't succeed as much as we hoped, but we had a few losses and we didn't qualify for the Open Division. And since then, that loss, it enhanced our performance. It enabled us, really. And we continued on. We would not lose. And we went through that entire bracket. We won the state.
Well, congratulations on that, because that is a huge accomplishment, and really just the ability to, as a high schooler, go and play in a professional NBA arena. I mean, surreal is right. I don't know how I would have been able to perform with, sure, it's not filled up to the brim, but with 18,000 seats watching you. Yeah,
and honestly, the depth perception of it skewed my release and my visuals, honestly, because usually you have a wall behind it. And you just have this basket floating in space, really.
Yeah.
And it definitely skewed me and affected my shot, but hold the follow through and keep your eyes on the rim.
So perhaps that helps explain why you've been able to sink a pair of buzzer beaters here with your time as an Oak. What is it about late game situations that you really seem to relish?
I don't know. Honestly, actually, you know what? I do know. Well, I believe that I tend to perform at my best when I'm not thinking and I just go off instincts, when it's all natural. And I tend to overthink, and in those moments in that situation, if you overthink, it will harm you. And throughout the entire game, I have to focus on just playing the game naturally. And at those moments, my brain, my body it just becomes subconscious, and I just begin moving without truly thinking or processing it.
All right, JT, let's talk a little bit about the team now. Menlo had to endure a pair of conference losses last week to two ranked teams. Let's start with Westmont. They're ranked 16th in the nation, and the Oaks were leading at halftime. What was a driving force behind Westmont kind of getting things going in the second half, or what flipped in the final 20 minutes of the game?
Yeah, well, again, at the beginning of that game, I remember us playing well. We were playing unselfishly. And toward the 8-minute mark, the circulation of the ball declined. It became stagnant, and it interrupted the flow of our offense. People began to attack or penetrate without passing the ball, and it definitely corrupted the offense a little bit, and that trickled down to affect the rest of the end of the game. And they had enough capability and talent to easily exploit that.
It seems like that happens a lot against Westmont coach teams.
Yep.
You know, you play really well for one half or even, about 30 minutes
Yep.
or so, but at the end of the game, something happens, Westmont finds a little bit of a groove,
Yes.
and they are just able to flip it around like that, and your mistakes just become costly.
They truly do, and that just it shows even more why you need to keep your composure and to really stick with the plan and to maintain the course of action.
And how important a 40-minute basketball game truly is against
Exactly.
a team like Westmont.
Yeah.
So then you guys lost to the second-ranked team in the nation, the Masters.
Yes.
That was on Saturday. All things considered, you guys hung in there really well. I mean, you had it at a two-possession
Yep.
game late down the stretch. And it seemed like fouls really dictated the outcome of that game.
Definitely, fouls accumulated just ridiculously quickly, and I remember the Westmont game, actually, personal fouls impacted us. I remember JP and I left the game in a matter of 2 minutes due to foul trouble. And we usually begin the game and attempt to, jumpstart the team at the beginning. But against the Masters, I mean, the foul discrepancy was just abominable, honestly. It was ridiculous because they were already on the line quickly into the game, and that obviously gave them the advantage. You already know the result of that, but we know now that against more athletic teams and larger teams, we have to keep our composure and defend wisely.
Yeah, which can be tough a lot of times
Yeah.
because you guys are giving up several inches at each position across the board.
Oh, yes.
Especially when you go 5 guards out there, then someone like you, 6'3", you're guarding a 6'10" guy.
Yep.
It's not easy to do.
Literally, yeah. And that requires a lot of mental toughness, and I appreciate that in the guards with Kalen, Jared, and I, as we have rebound well for the team this year.
It's one thing I've heard basically during every episode, the way you guys have to practice rebounding. Every man fighting for the ball, and it shows in every game, especially against the Masters.
Oh, yes.
Now, Charles Neal had arguably his best week as an Oak this past couple of games. He had 47 points over the 2 games. As a fellow guard, what's it been like to see him grow and become a more consistent player over the course of the year?
Charles Neal, side note, very compassionate person, very compassionate individual, very likable, sociable. Always enjoy interacting with him. But as a freshman, and I experienced it, Jay Wall can speak to this, you have some performance to prove, some capability to prove. What are you capable of? And Charles Neal and Najai, they've definitely had those moments where they must display their talent, they must exhibit themselves. And I like that about all freshmen, even myself. I had that same feeling or that desire. And Charles Neal, I would admire if he'd continue just to perform at that level each time, because I struggle with that myself, performing consistently. And Charles is a very gifted player. He displayed his talent there, and I would admire if he just continues maintaining that level of offensive production.
Yeah, I like that you bring up you, Jared, and then even John Payne from last season,
Yeah.
the 3 big freshmen
Yeah.
on the team last year. That's what you guys had to do.
Yeah.
And by the end of the season, you guys were kind of leading the team last year.
Yeah.
So now it's kind of fun to see the 2 guys below you step up, start
Yeah.
to do that as well while you're complimenting them, and it seems
Yeah.
like it's been a good mix so far.
Definitely.
Now, every game at this point in the season becomes a must-win game since you guys are 2-7 in conference play. Elucidate how you guys are able to not put pressure on yourself knowing that every loss is extremely detrimental to your playoff aspirations.
Well, playing basketball without emphasizing your opponent benefits you because you focus and concentrate on your own abilities, on your own performance, on your own potential. And the issue last year, I thought, not the issue, but the disappointment last year, we didn't truly achieve our full potential. We didn't display, we didn't reveal it to everyone. No one really knew what we were capable of. The season ended very suddenly and abruptly. And this season, I truly hope and desire that we'll truly display all we had, because we haven't fully attained to our full potential yet. And I believe it will come. And it will come shortly. And that there's plenty of season left to do that. And I think that's the difference between this year and last year. We're growing, we're accelerating much quicker than we have in the past.
Already saw that in non-conference play this year. The Oaks starting out 13-2,
Yeah.
the best start in Lord knows how long
Definitely.
it's been. So you guys definitely trending in the right direction. Now it's
Yes.
just a matter of finishing, going back
Yep.
to kind of how you were
Yep.
early on in the season and kind of flip the switch a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, Hope International and Vanguard present different challenges. They are the opponents for you this weekend. The Oaks were oh so close in the game against Vanguard to getting a win,
Yes.
came down to a one-possession game. What will it take to pull off a pair of road upsets this week for Menlo?
We'll have to maximize, like I said, our ability and what we're capable of. We will most likely, like as you mentioned prior, that we would have to maintain this consistency throughout the entire 40 minutes of regulation, which we have failed to do in the past. We had these little lulls or these period of dormancy where we just decline, become inactive, and we really need to maintain that activity throughout the entire game. And I believe we are more than capable of beating both these teams.
Hope on Thursday, Vanguard on Saturday. All right, Jeremiah, let's get into the final segment of the show. It's called
Yes.
Brownie Bites. I'm going to
Yes.
ask you 3 random off-the-wall questions. You give me your best answers. Question number 1. Which teammate would most likely win a spelling bee?
The teammate that would most likely win a spelling bee, Tyler Evans. He carries multiple nicknames. Honestly, most of them slip my mind right now, but I like to call him Ty Evs. And Ty Evs, he has this attention to detail that truly impresses me. Actually, it really captivates me. I mean, I enter the locker some mornings, and he notices my socks inside out. He notices the slightest discrepancy, and it truly just captivates me. Every morning, it could be just a slight piece of a particle you might have from my meal. And he notices, but recognizes, he's like, Tyler, he's like, Jeremiah, what is this? Sometimes he recognizes misspelled words, ungrammatical statements, like myself. But people, you don't notice it about Tyler, and I believe Tyler would truly excel on the platform of the spelling bee. Honestly, who knows if his parents instituted him in maybe a spelling bee competition, he may have won it all.
Well, you know, there's not many people in Arnold, so if he was in a spelling
Yes.
competition up in Arnold, he'd probably win it by default, actually,
yes.
because I don't know if there'd be anyone else to run against him.
That is a very valid statement, my friend. That is a very valid statement.
I mean, unless he's going to run against a frog or something.
A frog, interesting.
With the frog jumps, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's about the only other thing I can think of. We love you, Tyler.
We do.
Question number 2. Which teammate would most likely need to carry a pocket thesaurus?
The pocket thesaurus. Interesting. You know, honestly, a pocket thesaurus, it really appears in the iPhone that you already have.
Mm-hmm.
So there would be no use for it. But honestly, the pocket thesaurus would most likely be needed by Hank, Mr. Cornelius. Now, I've had plenty of discussions of linguistics with this friend of mine. When I mention people, they believe that I may overspeak or needlessly use some of these words. It's Hank, and Hank he enjoys staying simple, but I have encouraged him to expand his linguistic capabilities, but he's still getting there. And we always have these discussions of words, you know, what word to use there, how do you better convince someone if you use this word. And I think Hank is a very powerful guy, and once he truly activates his ability to speak, he can become a very, very influential figure. Very influential.
All right, question number 3. Which teammate would make the worst Cupid?
Now, the worst Cupid. So considering that most of our teammates are in active relationships, they have proven themselves as adequate Cupids.
Okay.
Most definitely. But the worst Cupid, I will have to identify my friend Bob, also known as Colton Worth.
How'd you get Bob out of...
Bop. I don't.
Bop.
Bop. People refer to Colton as Bop because I believe it evolved from him going around and bopping people, and so people used to call him Bop. He had to do with some type of physical contact, and that he received the name Bop. But Colton Worth, he has this great liking for the game Fortnite. Great affinity. And I mean, he devotes countless hours to this game. And honestly, if he enjoys it, then by all means. But the female preference may contrast and dislike that the application to those pursuits.
Bit of a turn-off, perhaps.
Turn off, but it would definitely require a sacrifice of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's truly willing to take that sacrifice. Fortnite is definitely an enjoyable game.
I have
Very
never played it,
Very
and I don't really plan on starting because I've heard it does get quite addictive.
Oh my. I mean, it consumes your life addictive.
I know someone who's broken their hand from playing that game.
Man, you see, I would not doubt that because Jared Wall, he has had similar interactions with objects and projectiles.
And he gets that way even if he's not playing Fortnite.
Oh yes. Jared Wall, very emotional man. He must win in basketball and video games and truly in life.
All right, Jeremiah, bonus bites. We're going to do a quick
Bonus
vocab quiz here. I'm turning my laptop away so you don't know
This is
these words and you don't see them on my screen here. So we're going to give you 3 words. I want you to see if you can nail the definition of the words.
This is tough.
Really quick.
This is tough.
Number 1, parsimonious.
Parsimonious.
It is an adjective.
I believe a synonym would be flamboyancy. Flamboyant. So flamboyancy, acting overly pretentious.
No.
No. May you repeat the word once more.
Parsimonious.
Parsimonious. Parsimonious. That was my only guess, really.
Got him. Frugal.
Oh.
Cheap.
Okay.
That's parsimonious. Number 2 is ennui.
Ennui.
That is a noun.
Ennui. Ennui.
I'm starting to feel great ennui from this interview.
No, nothing.
Boredom.
Boredom.
I'm
Yes,
not really
yes.
feeling ennui towards this interview,
yes,
but
yes.
just to use it in a sentence. And then number 3, this one, I'm going to give you a clue, and then I'll give it away, but you kind of already have the answer for it. It is ostentatious.
Ostentatious, yes. Though that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, that is flamboyant. Gaudy is what I have written down as an
Yes.
alternative definition for it.
Definitely the additional bites have stumped me.
That's okay, though,
Yes.
because you're the only person who's ever been brave enough to attempt bonus bites.
We may. Oh, so there was an option.
No, I just gave it to you.
Like
That's not like no one else has had that, but you're the only one who I thought was a worthy challenger.
Honestly, I may need a redo. Hopefully, another time.
Okay.
With a little more preparation.
Okay,
for sure.
you got it. We want better yet. Ooh, you want to talk about preparation? We could do this post game,
Let's do it.
even though you won't really have any time to prepare for it. But you'll just have to prepare before the game.
Yes.
Post game rolls around, and I got words for you.
Okay, let's do it.
Hit me up at the table after one of the games.
That sounds good.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
Sounds good. Jeremiah, thanks so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Folks, the Oaks are on the road this week. They are also on the road next week. This weekend, they have matchups against Vanguard and Hope. They take on Vanguard Thursday, and then they have Hope International ranked 9th best in the nation. That game is on Saturday. The next time you can catch the men's basketball team at home is for their final weekend of the season when they are inside Haynes Prim Pavilion Thursday, February 22nd to kick off their final homestand against Arizona Christian. Well, Jeremiah is the final interviewee by me, Brian Brownfield, here on Unrooted Men's Basketball Edition, so he doesn't get to pick anybody for next week. But do stay tuned because starting next week, the spring sport editions of Unrooted will be rolled out. Baseball and softball have their first episodes coming out next week. Men's volleyball, as you already know, is underway. And track and field and golf will also be sprinkled in as well. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. We will see you back here next week. Until then, take care, everybody.
Country roads take me home to the place